So it looked like Chennedy Carter is back in the headlines for calling out a double standard and bringing back up her incident with Caitlin Clark. Guys, this is crazy.
Can you believe that Chelsea Carter is making headlines again, and not for a good reason?
Because Chennedy Carter, in fairness to her, has almost like revived everything. She's revived her career. She's back. She's guaranteed a contract next year. So many good things are happening to Chennedy Carter, especially what she's doing in China. And now she's bringing up, she's bringing back one of her bad moments here to make a bad argument.
You may be wondering if Carter learned her lesson. It seems that she didn't, as her career was finally picking up steam and the entire situation was fading into the background. Then, all of a sudden, she brings it up again, but this is where things start to get really interesting. Carter isn't just bringing it up. She's attempting to paint it as a double standard between the NBA and WNBA. Is she serious?
But we see right here, Chennedy Carter calls it double standards between WNBA, NBA, displays.
Therefore, Carter's attempt to play the victim by bringing this up again is not only foolish, but blatantly deluded. She is only reminding everyone of her own poor behavior and lack of sportsmanship, not exposing any double standard.
Is that I thought Chennedy Carter just want to ride off in the sunset, not say nothing at all, because we already know as soon as you speak out, people is going to be on you like white on rice, bruh. They finna be firing you up every chance they get. And this is another case of clueless behavior from the WNBA. Now, this young lady right here is claiming that it's a double standard between the NBA and WNBA, bringing up the incident with her and Caitlin Clark when she clearly assaulted Caitlin Clark.
What do you think this says about Carter as a person and as a player? Is she truly so unaware of the impression that her actions give off? Or is this just a foolish attempt to remain relevant for whatever reason? There is no doubt that her recent outburst isn't helping her in the eyes of the public. Let's go back to the tense match between Carter and Caitlin Clark during the Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky game. Tensions were high, and Carter suddenly blindsided Clark by pushing her hard to the ground.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary?
The players, coaches, and fans all appeared astonished as the arena fell silent. The referees should have been all over this, but here's where it gets weird. They called it a common foul. Can you believe it? It seemed like Carter had just gotten in a little too aggressively, and the crowd couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Carter's action was way beyond a typical foul. It crossed a line that made people wonder what they were watching.
Then Chennedy Carter cheap shots Caitlin, and it's called as a common foul. That is why the talk. By the way, what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese was worse than what Chennedy Carter did to Caitlin.
What then became of Carter? No suspension or ejection. Right away, she remained on the court after that push. How did Chennedy Carter handle it all? She remained silent during interviews at the time, but now she's bringing it all up. Remember, when pushing someone to the ground was considered assault, not emotions getting to women? Carter is attempting to change the course of events, but her argument is flawed. Let's examine why her comeback is failing.
When emotions get to women, y'all opinions is funny. It don't even get this bad, like squaring up in a game. Way worse than anything I see in a field.
Many people are baffled by Carter's most recent Instagram tirade, in which she claims that the NBA and WNBA treat on-court situations differently in order to support her. She brought up an NBA brawl between Ron Holland and Jordan Clarkson.
Paul Reed right here. Right, he gets big bucket here. He turns around, and then JC's in his way, but he goes right at him.
And then he gets another bump, and oh boy, who put up the fist?
But here's the thing. Her attempt to compare her blindside push on Caitlin Clark to a mutual altercation in the NBA is absurd. It's like comparing apples and oranges, except that one of those apples is a rock.
It's very hard for a player to square up when you hit them when you blindside somebody. No offense. Like, I'm sorry, it's hard for Caitlin Clark to square up to you when she's on the ground after she had her back turned and you hit her.
Let's be honest for a moment. Pushing someone from behind and sending them crashing to the ground is not only bad sportsmanship, it's downright dangerous. Carter did just that to Clark. It wasn't a heated altercation or two players facing off. Rather, it was a well-planned, cheap shot that had the potential to cause serious injury.
No, she is definitely wrong, bro. You're physically assaulting people in the W. There's a big difference. People in the NBA ain't coming to blows, hip checking people. This ain't UFC in the NBA.
This is where Carter's argument really breaks down. She is citing an NBA incident where 2 players were ejected after a confrontation, but guess what? In her case, she was only called for a common foul. That's right. She blindsided Clark, sent her sprawling, and essentially got away with it. If anything, the double standard worked in her favor. Carter is now attempting to portray this as an emotional outburst that is being blown out of proportion in her Instagram story that she wrote. But when emotions get to women, you guys get opinions. Is she serious?
Hitting someone with their back turns 100% worse than 2 players going at it. And, by the way, they both got ejected and they're both going to get a suspension. You got called for a common foul. And that's where I think the big difference is that everybody knows. Carter's a fair point. She does, but I think there is a huge difference between what Chennedy Carter did, the aftermath of what Chennedy Carter did. Chennedy Carter screamed, "You B-word," and smacked someone in the back and blindsided Caitlin Clark for no reason.
Some of Carter's supporters attempted to argue that Clark elbowed her first, but let's clear the air. The video shows that Clark was simply reaching for the ball that day, and her arm swung naturally. There was no elbow or deliberate contact. This is just another feeble attempt to defend Carter's behavior.
What happens in basketball when players are going for the ball? Sometimes, limbs hit other places. And I think Caitlin Clark grabbed the ball, and I don't even think she connected with anything. But Chennedy Carter was like, well, Caitlin said nothing happened.
You are aware of what is truly telling. You can sure that we would have learned about it immediately if Clark had really elbowed Carter. Carter isn't exactly renowned for keeping her opinions to herself.
Because Chennedy Carter, if she had gotten elbowed from Caitlin Clark, she would have straight away said, I was just giving it back to her. She can't hit me and expect nothing. Everyone who knows Chennedy Carter knows not who knows Chennedy Carter, I don't know her personally, but anyone who's seen aim with Chennedy Carter knows. She has no filter.
Remember how vociferous Carter can be when she derided Clark as merely a 3-point shooter? It's quite obvious that this whole thing is being fueled by some personal animosity.
The fact is, she went on Twitter saying, she's not even good, and what does she do other than 3-point shooting? So this was a personal issue with Caitlin Clark.
However, let's take a moment to zoom out. This incident involving Carter is not isolated. Rather, it is a part of a larger pattern in which Clark appears to be the target of excessively aggressive play. During that same game, Clark received multiple fouls that ought to have been flagrant, but the referees chose to ignore it. It's as if they are wearing blinkers to protect one of the biggest stars in the game.
It is bullying when Caitlin Clark, in the game against the Seattle Storm, she got hit with 3 to 4 fouls that could have been called as flagrant. The referees blew no calls on 3 of them. On most of them. I was like, they blew a common foul once. Caitlin Clark, by the way, was it 3 days earlier? Got punched in the face. Caitlin Clark, 3 days before this game, got punched in the face. And the referees called it double tech.
Carter's attempt to portray this as a sexist double standard is quite perplexing. Rather than exposing any unequal treatment of women in sports, she is emphasizing the need for the WNBA to improve player safety and uniform rule enforcement.
Was the referees had it out for Caitlin Clark, the players had it out for Caitlin Clark, and everyone was watching this Chicago game. So we went into this game with the narrative that the referees were screwing Caitlin, they were letting players go at Caitlin.
Be crystal clear, please. Carter's actions weren't merely a spontaneous conflict. Rather, they were a planned move that had no place on the court. This wasn't just a passionate match. It was something completely different, and let's not mix it up with incidents like the Rhea Jackson brawl and the Britney grinder.
Debut at Dallas. This is her second stint with the
Rakia and
look
Griner.
Griner and Jackson.
You have to wonder what Carter's ultimate goal is here. Does she really believe that rehashing this incident and trying to play the victim will improve her image? From my perspective, it's having the opposite effect. Instead of coming across as someone who can't admit when they've messed up, she's coming across as someone who can't admit when they've messed up. Did you notice that that was an altercation, plain and simple, and her refusal to take responsibility for it even months later speaks volumes about her character?
When 2 players get into it, emotions get high, it is what it is. Chennedy Carter blindsided somebody.
Carter's decision to repeat a controversy that makes her appear worse with each word is a masterclass in how not to handle controversy as a professional athlete. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, except the driver keeps pressing the gas instead of keeping quiet, learning from the experience and concentrating on her game. The saddest thing about all of this is that Carter has genuine talent and could be earning headlines for her on-court prowess, but instead she's gaining more notoriety. For her off-court, it's disappointing to witness court drama and bad decision-making waste potential.
I'll always say this when it comes to Chennedy Carter. Like, I really like Chennedy Carter as a player. I think she's superb as a player. But, like, this was frustrating.
Ultimately, it's difficult to see how Carter will get past this controversy and resume her career until she can own up to what she did and demonstrate some genuine growth. Her most recent outburst isn't exposing any double standards in basketball. Rather, it's exposing her own lack of judgment and inability to accept responsibility for her actions.
What Chennedy Carter did is not even remotely similar. And the fact that what Chennedy Carter did progressed over 3 days of her crashing out on social media afterwards, to equate this to what happened with Chennedy Carter is rewriting history and what happened in the Chennedy Carter situation.
What does this entire situation say about the status of women's basketball, in your opinion? Should the WNBA take stronger action against risky play, or is it simply a matter of one player's poor choices overshadowing the league as a whole? There is little doubt that this drama is far from ended, and that it is clouding what ought to be a thrilling period for women's basketball. Let's discuss her job history. From WNBA scandal to playing abroad, Carter's career has been a tornado of talent and upheaval. Her journey has more twists than a playoff game in overtime. Carter has no doubt about her ability to be a formidable opponent on the court. Basketball is about more than just what occurs during those 40 minutes of play. It's about everything else as well. She has unquestionable talent, and when she's on fire, she can light up the scoreboard like nobody's business.
I mean, certainly there's real attitude issues. If I was a team, I mean, she can score with the lights out. I mean, she's pure offense, a pure shooting guard, scoring guard, instant offense. But if you're a team, do you really want her on the team? I wouldn't.
Did you notice that Carter's off-court problems keep popping up like weeds in a garden? We're talking about a pattern here. Carter has been bouncing around the WNBA from the Atlanta Dream to the Los Angeles Sparks, and now she's signed with the Chicago Sky for 2024. But why is the team hopping? Well, it turns out that Carter has a reputation that isn't the kind you want. Former teammates and coaches have been talking about it, and the phrase locker room problem keeps coming up, which isn't exactly the team spirit you want to hear about.
Way that she makes the violent motion down on her face, that she pops her good. I think that
now
you may be thinking, come on, everyone has bad days. But this isn't just one or two. We're talking about a history of emotional outbursts that have affected the entire team dynamics. Things got so bad that Carter's current team in China had to come up with a creative way to deal with her contract. Can you believe this? They've included a good behavior clause in her deal, with a $110,000 bonus up for grabs if Carter can maintain her composure during games.
Crazy to me that even overseas, Chennedy Carter basically has to get paid an extra incentive, basically a tip, to not explode on players.
Everyone is asking now, is Carter's talent sufficient to outweigh her off-court issues? Or is this a wake-up call for how we handle players who struggle with emotional control? It's like applying Band-Aid to a broken arm to keep a professional athlete from losing their temper. It might help a little, but it doesn't solve the real problem.
The thing when it comes to Carter is that with the way their GM's been talking, it seems unlikely that Chennedy Carter is one of the players that the Chicago Sky are going to be bringing back into it next year for the Sky.
One thing is certain. As Carter's career develops, we get a front row seat to a battle between undeniable skill and the demands of professionalism and teamwork. This story is forcing us all to consider what it truly takes to be a professional athlete. Is raw talent sufficient, or is there more to the game than what we see on the court? We're left wondering what success in professional sports actually means following all the turmoil involving Chennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark. Carter's actions demonstrate to us that being a celebrity involves more than just athletic prowess. It also involves character, sportsmanship, and serving as an example for young followers. As they observe their heroes, they learn that even the biggest stars have consequences for their acts. What's next for Carter Clark and the WNBA? The league is improving its standards and working on stricter regulations to ensure that players are safe and held accountable. This is a positive step.
Offensive rebound, Savale, and she's going to be tied up by Carter. Carter showing some spunk.
Carter's got some work to do to fix her reputation. Clark, she's still on the rise, showing us what star power looks like both on and off the court. And the WNBA, they've got a chance to set things right, to show they're serious about protecting their players and the spirit of the game. So what do you think? Are we heading towards a brighter future for women's basketball? One where talent and character go hand in hand?
Carter needs to work on improving her reputation. What do you think? Are we moving towards a better future for women's basketball, one where skill and character go hand in hand? Clark is still on the rise, demonstrating to us what star power looks like both on and off the court, and the WNBA has an opportunity to make amends and demonstrate their seriousness about safeguarding their players and the spirit of the game.